What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to Off the Wall. Today I'm reviewing Season 3, Episode 7 of Star Trek Picard. This one's called Dominion. Spoilers alert, let's get straight to it. So yeah, this one was a bit interesting at times, but I've got to say it definitely wasn't as strong as the previous other 6 episodes, especially the last episode, which was my personal favourite of the season. Coming off that one, I knew it wasn't going to be as good, but it was probably my least favourite episode, I'm not going to lie. Obviously notable absentees in this episode with Raffi, with Worf, and obviously no Deanna Troi. Especially that the last episode finished on a bit of a cliffhanger with Riker and Deanna Troi, and pretty much they were not in this episode. Obviously, a quick cameo from Riker, but other than that, it didn't continue on from the cliffhanger from the last episode. The episode was heavily involving Vadic and Jack, and really what the changelings have been doing, why they're doing this, and we got a bit of background about that. So therefore, it was a little disappointing, a little anticlimactic, but some good moments in this episode, which I'll discuss now. So this episode starts with 7 of 9 communicating with, I believe his name is Captain Tuvok from Voyager. I didn't watch Voyager, I'm not too familiar with it. I didn't recognize his face, but didn't know who he was. And this was a relevant cameo because it shows that the Titan were reaching out to other members of Starfleet and the Federation for assistance, but obviously they don't know who's who. With the changelings involved, they don't know who is the changeling, who isn't, what side they're on. So initially, 7 being pleased with Tuvok's answers, and when she was kind of reassured and the whole Voyager music was playing and everything, then she establishes this Tuvok, the Klingon, would not go to the certain world, so she knew from that point he was a changeling, and he did kind of morph into Riker as well, and they kind of cut the feed Picard where Riker's whereabouts, the feed cuts, he asked Geordi to cut the feed, and good tension-filled start to the episode. So after the credits, we cut to Geordi, who is sitting with Picard and Bevy Crusher, and he explains, I do not know any other places where to hide the Titan, and they have a conversation, a bit of an exposition. To be honest, the whole episode was like an exhibition-heavy episode, so a lot of dialogue, which I'll breeze through. But Picard was saying that they need like a DNA confirmation for his appearance and speech or whatever he's doing on Frontier Day, some kind of genetic confirmation, which lead them to think that is why they need Jack plus Picard's DNA or genetic makeup to make some kind of doppelganger for Picard. And obviously Geordi mentions there's someone else who can help and knows more about this, which is obviously Data 2.0. And we see Data still battling with the whole kind of law and Data kind of personality. It's kind of almost split down the middle, and Brett Spanner's performance is really good. Like you can see the conflict within him, a bit Gollum-esque, if you will. He's switching between personalities as they both establish their dominance, and it's obviously disturbing for Picard and Geordi because as the scene ends, we get Data pleading for Captain Picard to help him. And on the Shrike, we see floating head again, which we don't know who this is, and I hope in the next few episodes we'll get to see who that is. But we establish he's the big bad of the season. Vadic's a puppet, and they are aggressively trying to persuade Vadic to take extreme measures with Picard's loved ones in order to get results. Then we cut to Jack and Sydney, who are kind of flirting, in a lift, let's say, his romantic advances. Here, or we see that Jack can hear also voices. He can read minds, if you will, and he read a mind saying, I wanted to touch my hand or whatever. He does so, and his eyes are obviously going red, and see his kind of different abilities that he has. Jack then goes to speak to Picard. He explains that he feels extremely guilty about Riker, and about all of this is kind of happening because of him. Concerns, and he even offers to switch places with Riker. Let's arrange a meet up with Vadic to switch places. Obviously, Picard declines. Picard then hatches a plan to meet up or get Vadic on the Titan so they can get some answers. And they kind of lower their life signs, and they're just kind of drifting in space. The Shrike finds them, obviously Vadic, and she gets almost an away team of changeling agents, and they board the Titan. And this middle part of the episode is the weakest, probably the weakest sequence in season 3 of Picard, and it was a struggle to get through. I'm not gonna lie, I was picking on my phone sometimes, just unintentionally, daydreaming. I actually rewound a couple of scenes because I was just drifting off. It's got to be said with Jack Sydney, and was really bad. They're running around the Titan, using the code words of everyone else on the bridge to try and trap the changeling officers, and then eventually Vadic in these force fields scattered around. And there was multiple times and opportunities where the changeling agents could have stopped or shot them. And I do not know if the budget was affected this episode, but kind of felt like it with the action that was happening, and also the kind of lack of involvement of all the kind of next generation guys. So, like I said, the missing people war for Raffi and Deanna Troy as well, and Riker in effect. Yeah, it was really not good. The kind of running around the Titan. And I don't know why Sydney is there. Like, they have more proficient people who have a history of being in great action stuff, and also the security guys. I know throughout, the iterations of Star Trek, even they do have a skeleton crew, obviously, but they still have security guys. You shouldn't be able to board and roam around a starship without red shirts or security officers. So yeah, I just found that weird, and the action scenes were really rough. The shooting, and it just felt like an indie sci-fi movie. So the last one to get captured is Vadik, and always acting up with Data, and he's taking dominance, and he's deactivated the security system, so he's leaving everyone on edge. So Beverly Crusher and Picard are demanding answers from Vadik. Picard then explains to Vadik why he thinks they need Jack for his genetic makeup to make a doppelganger of himself for Frontier Day for their imminent attack. Vadik then goes on to talk about the Dominion War with the changelings, and violence is necessary, or the war was necessary, because the solids were invading, ruining every world that they come into contact with. Vadik was captured by the Federation and was experimented on. Really invasive things that were performed, and she was also tortured, and it gave her the ability to pass these genetic makeup tests that the Federation used to mimic humans. This technology was being weaponized and wanted to be used by the Federation. So in the end, Vadik managed to escape and actually killed her torturer, or the person that was doing the experiments on her, and actually took her form. And it was interesting because the way that she was killed was changing more into kind of almost a dagger, and kind of killed her that way. But we haven't seen that form happen with the changelings. We see them running around with guns and things like that, but we haven't seen them kind of take form and kill people. I don't know if that's a budget thing, if that's a CGS effects thing or not. But for example, we saw Jack and Sydney running around capturing these guys, but these guys could have killed them multiple times, not with guns as well, with the actual changing form. My conclusion about Vadik, I've said it in previous episodes, I really do not think that she is an interesting enough character. Villain, not the big bad of this series, but either way, she's really simplistic in terms of her death. She got tortured by a Daystrom station, and therefore she wants to kind of destroy the whole Federation and all the Starfleet. I did feel sorry for her, obviously being tortured and stuff, but that's a small contained story, meaning that her being tortured, I get that. But why she wants to take down the whole Federation, all the Starfleet, split personality she seems to have, some of it is interesting, where she's creepy one minute, she's almost childlike another minute, she's really dark and also playful at times. I'm not really getting the whole connection. It reminded me of Nero from Star Trek 2009, where obviously his issue, his planet got destroyed, he got set back in time, but instead of redeeming that fact, he kind of went after Spark, and it just didn't match up. Like it left you baffled about his reasons. The same thing's happening here. Like, I just don't get the fury that she has. It's not connecting. Like, I get that she's an antagonist and not a villain per se, but it's just not good enough for the levels of threat against the Federation. Doesn't match up with just kind of her being tortured, and I just don't feel the connection there. And it doesn't explain her personality traits as well. A creepy one minute and childlike and goofy the other minute. Where's that coming from as well? So a few questions there, and I'm not totally happy with Vadik as well. And we're still unsure about why Jack is wanted. I believe Picard straight out asked her directly to her face, and she kind of deflected it. But obviously they're saving that for the rest of the episodes. But it is getting a little long now in the tooth. We're on episode 7, and they haven't explained why Jack has his abilities. What do they want with him? Is it connected to Federation Day? Obviously, Picard and the Next Generation guys made an assumption about his DNA genetic makeup, linking it to his, but we haven't got enough answers from that yet. So I'm really hoping that's a good explanation, because they've done a big build up on it. And speaking of Jack, we see his abilities becoming more and more complex. He can not only read people's minds, but he can also take them over. And they had, again, not to be too down, but they did have a ridiculous action scene with him taking over Sydney, almost them kind of doing the same action stuff. They're both mirroring each other as they take out a changeling officer. Again, really bad kind of looking independent sci-fi stuff, which I wouldn't mind other stuff, but just not in the show, which is so good, which has me on the edge of my seat. Last episode, it was goofy and